Pitch to White. He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl!
Welcome to Patriots Touchback Podcast.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to another edition here of the Patriots Touchback Podcast. We are Season 2, Episode 15, and we're only our third week into the NFL season, and already it is going horribly, horribly wrong. Joining me tonight is Kieran and JD. The New England Patriots getting absolutely massacred in the Meadowlands, 24-3 to those blasted New York Football Jets. We will get on to the review of that in a bit. Make sure you smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, tell all your friends, follow us on all our social media platforms, and follow the podcast on the Sports Social Network and on Spotify as well. Kieran, JD, good to see you guys. How was your weekend?
Yeah, not too bad. Thursday night made me realise that I'm perhaps a little bit too old now to stay up till the early hours of the morning watching the Patriots get their pants pulled down. So, yeah, I didn't feel too great Friday morning, waking up with a pounding headache and obviously off the back of that loss. But the weekend was all right, so it kind of made up for it.
What about you, JD?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I have a little one, so I tend not to stay up for the late games. I generally just get up early in the morning and watch the game in 40. Which, yeah, getting up at 5 a.m. to watch that was less than an ideal start to a Friday morning. I can tell you that. But yeah, no, I think it's obviously incredibly disappointing start to the weekend. But yeah, the weekend itself was much better.
Well, there was only one big idiot involved in this, was we? And that was me, because I was the only fool that decided to book a Friday morning off just so I could stay out to watch the game. And I wasted 3.5 hours of, well, whatever the hell that absolutely was. That was awful. That was absolutely awful from my point of view. But I had a very good week. But I had a very, very, very good weekend nonetheless. But unfortunately, we do have to have a review of this game, even though it was 5 days ago now. The wounds are still very, very fresh. Let's put it that way. It ended 24-3 to the New York Jets. Kieran, where do you want to start with this?
I feel like I've got PTSD. It was genuinely so bad. I just think from start to finish, from the very first offensive series to even their first offensive series, just like the tempo and the feel and the vibe around the game, it just felt like we didn't show up at all. We weren't prepared. We weren't ready. We didn't look interested. And the Jets, to coin sort of quite a bit of a pun, they were in cruise control. They're in autopilot for a lot of the game. And that was enough for them to beat us quite comfortably. And, we hate losing to the Jets and, they hate losing to us. But that just felt worse than any other Jets victory I can remember in the last 15 years or so. Like, I know it's the first time we'd lost it at MetLife since 2015. The Austin Seferian-Jenkins game, if I can remember rightly.
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah.
And, yeah, it was just one of them where... I don't want to be horrible towards the American fans because obviously it's the American team, but I feel like as British fans, it makes you feel it more because we've stayed up so late to watch that. And it's such a commitment being a fan of a team that is based across the Atlantic, playing these late games. And we all care so much about the team. And like you said, Carl, you booked the morning off work because you wanted to watch your team play early hours of the morning. And then you get dished up that. I mean, that was just way off it. Not good enough. I can understand. Yeah, it's all very well losing the game, but to literally have your pants pulled down on national TV is just not good enough.
Yeah, not good enough at all. Not good enough. And speaking of which, our guest of honor on Friday night, Mr. Paul Hope's in the building. Good evening, chaps. Let's all talk about week 3. Well, we'll have a little bit more of a discussion on that on Friday, mate, if we're all going to be honest with you. But he has put, although at least you've got the memories of these shiny Lombardis to keep you through those long nights. That is very, very true. Very, very true indeed. Our boy Nick, not good enough, full stop. Yeah, that is full stop. I just want to read you this, okay, because Nick wanted to give his opinion on the game. This is what he says. O-line not good enough. Should have drafted a new one. Don't put Maye in as he'll get beat to shit and become another Bryce Young or Mac Jones. Wolf deserves some serious blowback. Pats are not good enough to come from behind. The last bit is spot on because we rely on the running game. And if we fall behind, that's it. We're absolutely we are absolutely screwed. JD, what's your take on this? Because there's a lot of, I mean, the offensive line is an absolute joke. It can't be described anymore than just an absolute joke right now. The one thing I will say is Caden Wallace was playing left tackle for the first time, not just in his NFL career, in his actual footballing career, because he never played left tackle in high school, never played left tackle in the NCAA for Penn State. He was primarily a right tackle. So he's going in left tackle and going up against the number one defense when it comes to pressure. From what I saw, he gave up half a sack and 3 pressures, which for a debut at left tackle, it doesn't sound so bad on paper, but it just looked incredibly worse for what we were watching it from where we were watching it anyway.
Yeah. I think he obviously struggled. I think it's a tough assignment for him. Like I say, essentially playing everything backwards by being at left tackle. I think we probably anticipate that transition is going to be a little bit easier than it really is, because if you spent years or a decade kind of practicing kick stepping to your right, starting to do it to your left is quite difficult. I actually thought there were bad reps. I think one of the worrying things for me was that there wasn't for example, Michael Onwenu at right tackle, he consistently gets beat to his outside. That's a difficult part of his game. He doesn't have the foot speed because he's a guard. One of the worrying things I found with Caden Wallace is he get all 3 of the key pressures he gave up were on completely different moves. They were power, they were swim moves to the inside, they were speed rushes to the outside. He struggled a lot. I think similar to David Andrews, I think it's not helped by the fact that guard play is as poor as it is. Layden Robinson, I think, while he looks good in the run game at times, really struggles in pass protection. I think a lot of the issues came from his lack of understanding of the Jets just kept running stunts the whole time, where your defensive end jams in between the guard and tackle. The tackle guard jams between the guard and tackle, and the end loops all the way around. And we just fell for that every time. The end starts like he's going to rush, drops back, and then moves round to attack the A gap, and we just fell for that because you would see Layden Robinson hold with the defensive tackle all the way across and leave a huge gap between himself and David Andrews, who himself had a poor game. But I think, if you look at our line, we've got a rookie who's never played left tackle at left tackle. We've got Michael Jordan, who's a practice squad player at left guard. David Andrews, who's aging and seemingly struggling coming off an injury. Layden Robinson, who's a rookie who's really struggled. And Michael Onwenu playing out of position. I really think it's not a good offensive line. It's an offensive line that was ravaged by injuries already, that was even worse. We were talking about and rinsing Vidarian low in the preseason for how bad he was with the picture of the colander, but we're begging for him now because it means we can actually play these guys at their natural positions. I think Caden Wallace showed enough that he could be a good right tackle. I cannot wait for Michael Onwenu to get back to guard because I just don't think he's doing anywhere near enough at right tackle. But I also think offensive line play across the league is looking poor as well. I think we're far from the only team to struggle. I think a lot of teams are struggling. I think a lot of the rookies that we liked have struggled. JC Latham has really struggled. Kingsley Sumatai has been benched. There's a lot of guys that we looked at that we liked in the build up to the draft who've also played really poorly. And I think defenses and sim pressures and complex pressures that you're seeing now across the league, nobody's just running blitz 3 or 4. Nobody's running simple pressure right now. Brian Flores is kind of the pioneer behind it, but we're doing something similar where there's a lot of bodies at line of scrimmage. Teams are stunting. Teams are dropping guys and manipulating sim pressures and stuff like that. And it's really hard for young offensive linemen. And I think they're really struggling. So it's difficult across the league, but I think it was certainly a big issue. But I also thought the game plan was atrocious.
So
go on. I was going to say, just to back up your point there, JD, on what you said about the rookies, and it's spot on. I think only Joel and who's the other first round, Talisi Fuaga. Yeah, they're the only two that have literally graded well this season. Every other rookie, including Latham, obviously we haven't seen much of Fashnu or of Mims yet. All the guys, Tyler Guyton, yeah, he's the same. Everyone has kind of like a sub 50 PFF pass blocking grade. All the guys that we liked, as JD said, in the sort of second round range, they've all struggled or have not played at all. So as much as you can make the argument for we should have drafted someone higher, maybe instead of Jaden Polk, them guys are all really, really struggling. So I think that was a really interesting point, but I still think, and I'm going to come onto this a bit later, I'm not going to do it now, but what Nick mentioned about Elliot Wolf, I've got a bit of a problem, and I'll touch on that later, but it kind of revolves around the offensive line.
So, according to Next Gen Stats, these were the pressures and sacks allowed, okay? So, left guard Mike Jordan had 2 pressures. Michael Enwedo at right tackle had half a sack and 3 pressures, so he had the same as Caden Wallace. David Andrews, 1.5 sacks and 4 pressures. If the center can't support the line of contact, then what is the rest of the offensive line going to do? But yeah, Layden Robinson, he played like a rookie. He played like a rookie in that game. 2.5 sacks he gave up and 5 pressures. He was the worst of a bad bunch. And the last 2 weeks, we've been praising Layden Robinson for how he's been doing. But that Thursday night game, he was awful.
I think we've consistently said, though, that his run blocking has looked good, but his pass blocking has struggled. And I think the reason that's maybe not looked as good or as preeminent is because we've not passed the ball as much. I cannot understand for the life of me the game plan we had coming into this game. I spent all of Friday saying to pretty much anybody in the office, why the hell didn't we run the ball down the Jets? Most of them didn't know what I was talking about, but I was still just echoing through the office. Why didn't we just run the ball? We spent 2 weeks running the ball so well. We come up against one of the worst run defenses in the league, and we just abandoned the run. Especially a team that, like you mentioned earlier, Carl, pressures better than anybody else in the league. And we just chose to decide, okay, let's sit in true pass sets and try and throw the ball. And I can't for the life of me. I know AVP's tried to explain it, but I don't understand. I can't understand where that game plan came from, or what they thought they would get, where they thought they had an advantage. I don't know. I can't even rack where that concept came from to me. And that's the biggest issue. I think the first 2 weeks, the coaches have done a pretty good job, but I thought this week it was abysmal. A really poor coaching job.
Yeah, I completely agree. All across the board as well. One thing I will get onto the defense is back on this. The missed tackles. Oh, Jesus Christ, the missed tackles. 15 missed tackles for 100 yards in that game. This ain't Division 3 football. This is the NFL. You can't miss tackles like that. That is... every time I saw him miss, it was a gain of like 15, 20 yards. Another missed tackle and another missed one. It's a first down here, a first down here. You want a third down. Hopefully you stop them. Don't miss tackle. They get the first down then. It was absolutely disgusting. I've never seen tackling like that in so long. That was poor.
Well, they only missed 11 in the first 2 games combined. And then, you're talking 13, 15 missed tackles, whatever it was in this game alone.
So what happened then? What happened?
I don't know. For me, I think... I'll go on, Kieran.
I was going to say, I think I think it might be an anomaly to start with, but for me, look how much we are being depleted defensively at the moment. Like every time we get an injury, it's a key player. Like even in this game, we've already talked earlier in the season about Barmore and we are missing Barmore, and then Bentley goes down. That's obviously a massive loss, especially against a team like the Jets, someone who rack up a lot of tackles. But then Peppers goes out. He's in and out of the medical tent in this game. And the dominoes are starting to fall one after one on the defense. And if you're seeing those key figures go around, it's not just missing tackles, but the lack of leadership to hold people accountable for that on the field as well. I think that the fact that we are being so depleted and we are down to a lot of second stringers having to step in, I think that might be a contributing factor to so many missed tackles. But I do also think it was a bit of an anomaly because, as you said, 11 in the first two combined. This isn't a bad tackling team.
No, and I think you're right with the injuries. I also think Bentley being out and him taking that leadership role and somebody who dictates the defense, Duggar and Tavai having to kind of take on more of that role probably could contribute to them playing a bit slower because they're now thinking about what everybody's doing rather than playing on instinct like they would normally do. I also think I've mentioned it yet, but it's worth thinking about that we were coming off an overtime game on the Sunday into a Thursday game. And while that's obviously, I saw somewhere that the teams that have gone from an overtime game on a Sunday into a Thursday night game are something like 2-16 going into this game. So I think that's probably a factor. Like you say, we lost Bentley last week. We have to deal with it. We have a short week to replace a defensive leader. You've got other injuries, like I say, with the offensive line. We had to reshuffle that. You've only got less than 4 days to get your team ready. And I think that's what it looked like. It looked like a coaching staff that hadn't prepared a game plan well enough. It looked like a team that wasn't prepared. It looked like a team that was still sore from Sunday. Everything looked slow and everything looked just very intentional. There wasn't much in the way of kind of fluidity or anything like that. And I think that was... And then you saw the Jets, on the other hand, who, having an experienced quarterback and a solid run game, they just dictated the flow of the game the whole time.
That was strange because, okay, we come off an overtime loss on the Sunday. Okay, so we have a short turnaround. But the Jets, this will be their third game in 11 days. And we said this last week. Is fatigue going to play its part? No, it didn't. They look primed. They look ready. I'm not the one who gives Aaron Rodgers any sort of credit. But what he done in that game, he actually did very, very well, much to my disgust. That touchdown he threw to Garrett Wilson, that was a figure of beauty. There's no way Christian Gonzalez can do anything more. He done what he had to do. Rodgers just put that ball in the place where Gonzo can't get it. And to be honest, you just got to take your hat off and go, yeah, okay, that was unavoidable.
Everything was so calculated and methodical, I thought. It was almost like he had all the time in the world to just sit there and just go bump, 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 and that was it. It was almost like a conductor of an orchestra. He knew exactly what to do, and it was just so easy for him. It was far too easy, and we know that's what he's good at, and we enabled him to do that. And once again, going back to the defensive injuries, we are lacking a real dominant pass rush, at the moment. Our pass rush isn't bad, but against the Jets, and against people like someone like Aaron Rodgers, where you need to get in his face and fluster him, just didn't generate enough. Well, we were on the field too long.
But with Rodgers, the ball's always going to come out quick. That's what he does. Yeah. And he wins pre-snap. And you saw that in the matchups that he attacked, like Lazard against Alex Austin and against Marcus Jones and Jonathan Jones. He knew, Mike Williams as well, he knew he had bigger receivers that had a height advantage on players like Marcus Jones and Jonathan Jones. And he attacked them. And that negates pressure because the Jets O-line isn't great, but it negates pressure by being able to get the ball out quickly and identify matchups that quickly. Brissett didn't do that and struggled in that regard, I think.
Joe's just managed to pop in now after getting his boy sorted. Joe, you all right, mate?
Good evening.
Hope you're well. Talk us really what your thoughts on the really embarrassing loss, shall we say, to the Jets.
Absolutely shite. Oh, there's no other way to describe it, and then that's from. It was embarrassing to watch at times. Like, as bad as last season was, I honestly think that was probably the worst performance I've seen from the Patriots in, wow, as long as I can remember. It was just
Probably the Bills playoff game, I reckon.
Yeah. To be fair, it's the Bills playoff game. Just everything was just inept. Like they're for me, I can't give one player a pass mark. I really can't. It was just painful watching.
How much?
Yeah.
How much of this do we put on Brissett? Because I know the offensive line is meant to protect him and so on, but we're talking about the same situations now, and all I'm hearing is the noises are getting louder and louder and louder now, saying we want Drake Maye in. But
I mean,
if you throw him behind that, but the problem is, though, people have turned and said we can't just throw him in there in case he gets hurt. I goes, right, okay. What difference is it going to make? You could put in Sam Darnold behind that line. You could put in Ryan Tannehill behind that line. Fuck me, excuse my language. You could either put Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or even Patrick Mahomes behind that line. Guess what? None of them would survive. None of them would survive. Not even Kyler Murray, who is who runs around like a rambunctious toddler. Even he wouldn't get away with it. This line is terrible. So what difference is it going to make, apart from the fact we might be able to extend some plays, but it takes one bad hit on Maye and he's gone, and then we really have put ourselves up shit creek without a paddle.
I think the thing for me is, and I know I called for it last week on the pod, but this line isn't going to get better this year. This is the line that we've been dealt the hand that we've got, and you only had to look at the game last week and the amount of times Brissett got hit because he just could not escape the pressure. He couldn't get out of the pocket. Drake Maye's far more athletic than him. And there's nothing against.
I think the line might get better. I think we've got Lowe to come back in and we've got Sidiso to come back. And I think that'll allow, like we said earlier, a couple of guys to return to more natural positions. Yeah. I think Thursday night is going to be, I hope, certainly, is the worst it's going to get. Yeah, barring more injuries. Yeah,
I
don't think Brissett could have done much the other night, to be honest. I mean, I know we've all got our opinions on what happened with the QB situation, but he genuinely got molested. Like, it was just horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And I felt sorry for him.
What was telling to me, Kieran, as you could see when he got hit, he just looked fed up. He just looked
defeated
guy, and I can understand that. Like when you're constantly being pressured and you're constantly being hit on every single play, it must be so demoralizing. Like he must have been thinking he could have signed somewhere else as a backup and just taken a nice paycheck this year, sat on a bench. But
I think we will see Drake soon as a result of that. I think Drake will become the starter earlier than what they want. Down to that, we've seen across 3 games now that Jacoby has been battered and bruised, and even against Seattle, we said this last week that we thought he was done then, and I think it's going to happen at some point. I think it's inevitable with his injury history. There's going to be one hit, and then Drake will be in by default. It won't be a coach's decision. He will have to come in, and he will have to deal with the circumstances there, but. I know you guys just said then, this is the cards we've been dealt with the offensive line this season. I feel like it's the perfect time to segue into Elliott Wolf, the elephant in the room for me. Yeah. I think he's got an awful lot to answer for, and I don't want to lambast him and string him up by the bollocks this early into his GM career. But he's had this job now since January. Effectively, I know he hasn't had the position, he had the title since then, but he's basically effectively taken this job since Belichick stepped down. So that we all knew the line was shit last year. So it wasn't exactly like this has surprised us. So he's had January. One of the first things he did was sign Chuck Sikora. At the time, we thought, okay, that's probably a decent piece to add to the team. It's turned out to be an absolute disaster. He's then gone into free agency and done next to nothing with the O-line. The draft thing comes about, and we draft Caden Wallace, we draft Layden Robinson, And yeah, fair enough, and we've spoken earlier in the podcast about how a lot of those tackles haven't panned out yet in the draft. But for him to come out in the press, like going into the season when the O-line questions were coming in training camp, the beat reporters are saying, look, this O-line looks atrocious in practice, in training camp. What are you going to do about it? And he's saying, oh, we're excited about the guys we have in the building, all this lot. Now's not the time to start polishing a turd, Elliot. Like, this is the worst offensive line in the league, and you've got to pull your finger out your ass and do something about it. Like, I heard Doug Kyde say the other day that reporters have been asking in the press conferences, are you considering looking at some of the free agent tackles such as Charles Leno and DJ Humphries, Donovan Smith, David Bakhtiari? There's 4 guys there. And they said, no, it's not really the kind of thing we're going to do. We kind of want to develop the guys we have in here. But just hypothetically, you take any one of those 4 guys and plug them in at left tackle. Sidney So's now returning at left guard. That's your left side sorted.
That's your blind side sorted. Yeah. That's your blind side.
David Andrews at centre. Perfect. And when now the right tackle, as left tackle situation is sorted, you can kick him inside. And as JD said last week, that's your interior solidified. And then that allows you to play Caden Wallace at right tackle in his favoured position where he's got 40-odd college starts. There's your line. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be the best line, but the addition of one veteran offensive tackle who knows what the fuck he's doing, plus you've got your high, promised guard from last year, that could transform the line. So my pitch to Elliot Wolf is stop scratching your ass and trying to do something about this bloody line, because it is not good enough. And it is glaringly obvious to the entire NFL sphere that we cannot go on like this. Stop adding undrafted free agents from other teams' practice squads onto our practice squad. That ain't going to work. You've got to fix the line. Otherwise, this season's a write-off, and there's no point sticking in Drake Maye because he's going to end up in hospital within a couple of weeks.
You see, I think I maybe don't blame Elliot Wolf as much as a lot of other people do. I actually want to give him a bit of a pass, because I think the state that Belichick left this team in is a multi-year rebuild, and that it wasn't going to get better very quickly. And I was very vocal in the preseason that I thought this year was a write-off and was not going to be anything really. I don't think I was down for 4 wins or whatever. I think you said there he has done stuff to address it, in my opinion. It's not worked. I don't necessarily think the process was bad. I think the result is bad, but I don't necessarily think the process was terrible. We drafted 2 offensive linemen who so far haven't looked wonderful, but could still contribute. We tried a veteran with Chuck Okorafor. That didn't work for seemingly reasons beyond football. And again, I think one of the things maybe we overlook when it comes to these kind of veteran offensive tackles, if you're someone like Bakhtiari or Leno or whatever, sat on your sofa, do you want to come to New England? I don't think they probably do. Do I want to go and trudge up to the cold Northeast and play in the snow and play for a team that's crap? And also, if I'm nearly 40, do I want to be going and playing for somebody who's not a contender? Do I want to be playing a full season, or do I want to just potentially get signed when injuries hit later in the year, which I think is likely their plan? And they can be kind of pickier. Like we said, line play, I don't think has been great across the league. But I also, are those guys actually going to be an upgrade over what we have? I mean, obviously, probably better than what we had Thursday night, but Vidarian Lowe's been in the system now for 2 years. He's not great. He's a slightly below average left tackle, but are one of those older gentlemen going to come in, having not practiced for nearly a year, having no knowledge of our system? Are they going to come in and be better? I agree it's potentially worth kicking the tires, but I don't think something like that, adding a veteran like that, potentially solves any issues. I mentioned earlier whether Jacoby Brissett is the problem. I don't think he's the problem, but I do not think he's helping. And one of the big arguments against Drake Maye not playing right now is that he's not ready, and he's not going to elevate the offense, and that Brissett is billed as this game manager who can get us into the right play and check us out of bad things. And he did not do that on Thursday night. The amount of times that we didn't check out of run plays that were never going to work. The amount of times the Jets had a wide 9 and we ran a bootleg in that direction. And the play was dead from the moment the ball was snapped. But if Jacoby Brissett can go out there, and that's what he's supposed to be good at, line up under center, and see that the defense they have out there is not well matched and well suited to the play call we have, he needs to be able to check us out of that. And if he's not doing that, or he can't do that, then I don't see why we don't have Drake Maye in there, because the big argument is he's not ready. The only other argument I can see is that we're saying we do not care about this season. Punt on this year. Drake May's not touching the field unless he has to, because we don't want to risk him. And we're thinking long-term, not short-term. That's the only argument I can come up with for not playing Drake Maye. Because Brissett right now isn't necessarily doing, and hasn't been all year, really doing what he was billed to do, which is win pre-snap. And Thursday night was a big, big example of where he just didn't do what he was billed to be when we signed him.
And you said that just a couple of points there. Like, first thing, like, I don't want to bury Elliot Wolf for everything, because I actually think he's done some good stuff as well. Like, I don't think it's a case of this guy's got to be fired, like he's on the hot seat or whatever. Like, I don't think that at all. But I think he has to take accountability for this, and because he's not roster construction is a huge part of his job. Is it director of player personnel? You've pretty much you've signed up for this with this job title, so. Like, he's got to take accountability for that, in my opinion. But yeah, he has done some good on the other side. A lot of the contract, renegotiations and stuff, and trying to keep our top talent that we do have, it's been really important. So I think he has done, an okay job. But that doesn't mean he's exempt from criticism. I think it's just such a difficult one with Brissett and Maye. Like, I really don't know where to go with it. I genuinely don't, because I want to see Drake as much as anyone else, but I'm seriously worried that he's gonna. I mean, he got sacked on his first play, and he had men all over him in this game. And there's one thing you just said there as well, JD. Before pass on, you said about a veteran might not be an instant fix, and it might not. That's a good point. But it's like, I would at least kick the tires, like you said. And for them to shut down the fact, having been asked this at a press conference, and they're saying, no, we're not really looking at those guys. Like, if the news come out and said, Patriots have reached out to these 4 offensive tackles and all 4 of them have said no for X, Y, and Z, fair enough. You've tried. You kick the tires. They don't want to come. Fine. We work it out. But the fact that they sat there, one of them may want to. They're not earning any money, sat on their ass doing nothing at the moment, are they? So one of them may want to sign, and it may solve a short-term gap until hopefully we get Will Campbell next year.
Yeah. So Drake Maye. So let's have a talk about Drake Maye, okay? Because he came in. It was in garbage time. He was playing the secondary backups, although someone said that apparently Sauce Gardner was still on the field at the time. I didn't quite see it, but I'll have to double check.
Most of the Jets team was still out there.
Yeah, it was still the first team Jets team.
Yeah. They were just playing passively because they were winning by 21 points. So they're not playing really for anything.
Jets giving us sympathy. That's something I'd never ever hear in my lifetime. Anyhow, so Drake Maye's debut. This is how it all started, how it all finished. Okay. Nearly picked, handoff, pile driven into ground on the scramble, handoff, screen pass for nothing, handoff, 2-yard pass, sacked by 2 guys, handoff, wide receiver screen, 11-yard scramble, incompletion with a QB hit, incompletion, Douglas alligator arms. I don't know what term of phrase that means. 15-yard completion, which was basically the 4th down, sacked, lost helmet.
Yeah, Douglas made a business decision on that 3rd down.
100%.
That was 3 linebackers. I mean, Drake did his best to try and put Douglas on IR. I think that was if he'd thrown that ball at his body, I think he'd have been all right. But yeah, down 21 points. I don't necessarily have an issue with Douglas, who's probably our most dangerous receiver, deciding I'm not going to dive headfirst into 3 linebackers. And
It's something I don't get though. So we converted a 4th down. We're in 1st and goal. Why is Gerard Mayo not because we had timeouts? Why is Gerard Mayo not taking timeouts? I know it's garbage time. I know it's not going to make a blind bit of difference. We're going to lose the game. But give the kid a chance. You got 30 seconds. You got 4 opportunities. Go stick it in the end. Go and stick it in the end zone.
I think he watched the franchise helmet fall off and thought, that's enough of that.
I think it's one of them unwritten rules as well, isn't it? It's a bit like the NBA one, like where you don't dunk on your opponent when you're up by X amount of points. I think it's the fact that the game's done. Just let's just get out of here.
Yeah, I think it was just Drake May's helmet rolling across the field. I think probably just made him think, what am I doing here? Like, is this worth it? Is it worth losing 24-10 to risk putting Drake May out there? I think I would probably not bother.
It's one of those games where we just didn't turn up, unfortunately. It really is.
I don't know who Matthew Smith is, but can we block him?
Yeah, don't worry, we have timed him out.
Yeah, stop making accurate points in the chat, Matthew Smith.
Exactly. We're here to be depressed. You don't need to add to it, Matthew.
Yeah, turned out. If you're gonna have anything nice to say, then be constructive about it. If you're not, don't bother. This is not a Spaces, okay? This is a proper podcast, okay?
It could be a Jets fan wallowing the fact they've beaten us for only the second time in about 30 years.
More than likely. But
you've got quite a few games. If you are a Jets fan, you've got quite a few games to catch up on. Let's just say that.
Group therapy is always good for the soul.
Yeah, Paul. I agree with that. Group therapy is always good for the soul.
It's always good. This is group therapy. Well, this has been group therapy now for about 2-3 years now, so it's not going to get that much easier. It's like an addict going back into rehab. When are you ever going to stop? Anyhow, there was some silver linings in this, okay? And what Drake did in the garbage time fourth quarter was there was some nice bits that he did throw. There were some good throws that he did have. But this offensive line just didn't give him no favors whatsoever. I'm gonna come back on you, Joe, for guarding of Gonzalez, because I don't think Gonzo. You say no one deserved to walk off their head high. Fine, there are a lot of players don't deserve to. Gonzo, once again, had another day where he locked down the number one receiver. I think it was, let me just have a look.
Yeah, no,
it was 4 catches for 25 yards and a touchdown. But we've already discussed it before you come onto the show when Rodgers threw that ball to Wilson in a place in the end zone where Gonzo wasn't going to get it. That was just a perfect throw from Rodgers.
That's just us, Aaron Rodgers, doing Aaron Rodgers things.
Yeah.
There's maybe 2, perhaps 3 quarterbacks that can make that pass in the placement where it needs to be. But no, I think, like I said, I think started off the show, I think I came on here, we all had upset fit. We all looked very sad, but Gonzo again stood out head and shoulders above any player for me in the Patriots. And again, it's just shown that, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, and this is how high I rate Gonzo, is our best cornerback since Darrelle Revis, and that's including Gilmore, who was the defensive player of the year.
Oh, that is a big call.
That is a huge call. But
and I am
comments down in the section below. Who was the better call? Who was?
I am a Stephen Gilmore absolute
Darrelle Revis, or was it Stephon Gilmore?
Super fan.
One thing I will say about that,
Gonzalez,
I think although Gonzalez only played 4 or 5 games as a rookie, in the limited time we have seen him, he may have had a better start to his career than Stephon Gilmore did.
Yeah,
because Gilmore really rose to prominence with us, but he's with Buffalo for like 4 years before that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I mean, I love Gilly. I still think he's got a long way to go.
I love Gilly. Like for us, like I mean, he wins us the Super Bowl really with his play, but. No,
I think he maybe has the potential to be as good as Gilmore. I think to say he's as good as Gilmore now is a bold statement.
I'm sticking by it. I'm doubling down on it. I
think this was probably Gonzo's worst game as a Patriot. I think. I think he got lucky on a couple of plays. One catch was taken away by a penalty. He fell over on one play that if Rodgers had hit Wilson. He just missed him. That would have been another touchdown, likely. I actually think the touchdown that he gave up was one of his best reps. I think if 98% of NFL QBs attempted that, wouldn't even attempt the throw Rodgers tried, and if they did, it's probably a 99-yard pick six for Gonzalez. Unfortunately, the downside of playing D is sometimes there's just nothing you can do about perfect offense, and that was perfect offense. Wilson is a brilliant receiver, but I do think he struggled a little bit. There were a lot of reps. I mean, I think it was 50% of the reps he had against Wilson were in press coverage as well, which is a tough ask because Wilson his releases are fantastic. He is a very good receiver, and it's not to be sniffed at what he did against him. And I think Kieran's already pointed out earlier and mentioned in the preseason that while he's been limited in terms of the number of games he's played, Gonzalez, he has played a murderer's row of receivers, of number ones that he's gone up against. And I mean, you think just within the division, I know Buffalo don't have Diggs anymore, but that you've got Tyreek Hill, you've got Jalen Waddle, you've got Garrett Wilson. He's got a lot of really good receivers to go up against continuously, and I think he's done a good job so far. I think it was, like I say, probably his weakest game. There are a few missed tackles, and he didn't look particularly willing in run defense, which is not something I usually say about him. But I was his run defense was a bit poor. But again, it's a blowout. And I think the scoreline probably flatters us a little bit more. I think it felt more like a 40-3 game than a 24-3 game. But I think, a short week and a rough game like that, you can't necessarily blame guys who have not been motivated to go and defend the run.
No, absolutely. So the other few bits here, wide receiver Demario Douglas, best receiver out of all of ours, caught 7 catches for 69 yards. One of them, he got the offense going on a 22-yard completion on a crossing route off play action. Yeah, more of that, please. Thank you very much, because we've been needing some plays like that for obviously the last 3 weeks now. But it was good. But
Once again, it was a little bit like we spoke about last week, where Brissett just honed in on Hunter Henry all game. It just seemed like this game, it was like, right, let's get the ball to pop, and nobody else was getting it. So it just seemed like this tunnel vision for one particular pass catcher every single week at the moment.
Yeah. And then the last two, both on our pass rush side of things. So Patriots edge Keon White, he had a team high 4 quarterback pressures, adding to his terrific start to the season. Josh Uche also logged his first sack of 2024 and another QB pressure. So the pass rush did fairly a decent enough job. But unfortunately, we're going to need more bodies to actually help in this. It's going to be an issue. It's going to be an issue moving forward now. We do move on to Sunday on the road against the 49ers. We're all dreading preseason when we saw the fixtures come out. Oh God, how bad it is. It's either going to be really, really bad, or it's just going to be historically awful. We're not going to get into previewing that because that'll be on Friday night. But just around the table, we can't have another game like we had against the Jets. I mean, if we do play Jacoby Brissett again, my goodness, they have got to protect him this time round. They have got to.
I mean,
I said, go on, Joe. Go on.
Kieran. I would just go heavy formation, 6 linemen on the line at all times, double up on Nick Bosa, and just hope you can get rid of the ball quickly. That is my plan for the game. Just try and negate Nick Bosa.
I do wonder if the offensive line injuries, because Caden Wallace was typically our 6th offensive lineman. I do wonder if those O-line injuries is kind of what took us out of the 6-man line. And the fact we didn't feel comfortable putting Zach Thomas and those guys out there, which is typically what we've had more success in over the past 2 weeks. Yeah. So hopefully if we get some healthy bodies back on the O-line, that could be something we could look to do more.
I think with their pass rush, like I said last week, we were getting breaks in the sense of like players keep dropping like flies for these opposition teams, and now Javon Hargrave is out for the season. So in terms of our offensive line, that's obviously a big leg up for us. So I'd imagine Bosa's going to get a lot of double teams, but they still have so many good defensive players that
they do.
It's
still got Fred
going to be a struggle.
You're still going to have Fred Warner coming up.
Yeah,
the line.
Best linebacker in the game, Fred Warner.
I was saying last week, I was like, Jermaine Johnson's gone for the Jets and CJ Mosley's out. This defense is going to be weak. And then they ran over us. So
our offensive line is tracing paper.
I mean, yes, it will help.
But to be fair, the Niners are pretty ravaged. If you look at, McCaffrey, Kittle's got a hamstring injury, Debo's out, Ayuk looks like he just doesn't want to be there. There's aside from Juwan Jennings and nobody's really. Brock Purdy's actually playing really well. Their right tackle, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'm sure
McKivitz.
They call him McKivitz. Yeah, he is awful. My God, he is. I think he probably wouldn't even crack our starting lineup on our offensive line. He's woeful.
Oh, I don't know.
No. So their centre as well, Brendel. He's bad, man. I've been watching a bit of the Niners over the weekend to try and sort of get ready for the preview stuff. And Trent Williams is Trent Williams. He's just incredible.
Head and shoulders above anyone.
But Brendel and McKivitz are real weaknesses that if we can, I think Dietrich Wise could have a good day against him. He struggled with length as McKivitz, and Dietrich Wise, who seems to get limited pass rushing snaps at the minute, but he could have some success against him. Keon White, if we can get him in the middle again in passing scenarios, he'd have a field day against Brendel. I think there's opportunities in that regard. I just don't know if we have the horses on offense to keep up with their D.
I just want Keon White lined up and just going through the center every single time, because I think that is where we're going to get success.
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword with that.
I think we have got.
Sorry, go on, Kieran.
I was going to say we just got to be conscious. We spoke about that the gaming at Seattle about the pick your poison with the offensive weapons, and we got gashed by JSN. And this week, if Ayuk and Debo are back, I mean that's obviously not going to be a good thing for us. Excuse me, but Juwan Jennings looked like an All-Pro receiver the other day, and if they've got other players on the outside, then they're just going to keep going to Juwan Jennings and letting him carve us. Because I mean, what did he have? 11 catches, 175 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, the Rams had no answer for him.
The Rams.
I don't know how the Rams won that
so.
game. I genuinely have no idea how the Rams won that game.
Because they have got an elite quarterback. Staffy was still on fire as always.
Yeah, that's going to be another thing where Gonzo will likely be on Ayuk, and then it will be on the others to see what they can do against us.
Indeed. Right. Nick, Kieran, is there any bit of news that has come out of the Patriots camp that we should be aware about?
Obviously, we spoke about City So returning to practice. I think that's a positive because it may mean some reshuffling on the offensive line. Is he a star? No, but he's certainly proved like he's got potential.
He's far more serviceable than what's in there at the moment.
We'll see exactly. There's been a couple of practice squad additions. Obviously, the tackle that you spoke about earlier on, Jalen McKenzie, former USC offensive tackle, former UDFA. He's signed to the practice squad. And some news coming out in the last hour. We've signed wide receiver John Giles to the practice squad as well. He is a UDFA out of West Florida. So, again, some just rotation on the practice squad. He's 6'3", was with the Giants in the off season, and is now on our practice squad. But nothing really substantial to report.
No, nothing. Well, there's one thing to sound report. This prick who was talking a lot of crap has now come back in on a burner account. So I'm happy to do this. In the words of my great friend Lee Gunner, have a double unskippable. Bosh! There you go. Get the fuck out of here. Anyway, on that note, we're going to get on out of here. As we said, guys, we do have a preview show this Friday night, and it's a big, big one at that, featuring the 49ers Faithful UK and Crystal Ballin. They will be on at 9 p.m. UK time, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Please make sure that you check out that. That's going to be a very, very good stream. And also it will be out on podcast on Spotify as well. So we'll look forward to seeing you all then on Friday. Joe's going to be with me to help break down the 49ers. And we'll hear from the 49ers perspective on how bad the Patriots are, because it will be how bad, not how is there any silver lining. It will be how bad. But anyway, that's the end of our show, guys. Thank you to Kieran. Thank you to JD. Thank you to Joe. Make sure you smash the like button on the way out. Go on, spike the subscribe button. Tell all your friends. Follow us on all our social media platforms and follow us on our podcast on Spotify, on our Spotify as well. And obviously, we will see you on Friday. Until then, good night. God bless. Go Patriots. Let's not try not to have another one of these games again. Good Lord.